In this next video for 8.5, we're going to continue kind of where we left off for solving equations containing radicals in the last video. This time we're going to take a look at equations those that might have more than one radical and how you approach that. If you take a look at number 4 right here, you'll notice that there happens to be two radicals in the problem. And if we look at it, you'll notice that we have a radical isolated. Well, like what we talked about in the first video. Since it's isolated, we're going to go ahead and do that same sort of process. Once it's isolated, think about how you get rid of the radical. Well, since the index is 2, what you're going to do is go ahead and you're going to square it. And if we do something to one side, you go ahead and do it to the other. So the radical will cancel on the left, and you get 6x minus 3. And you think about what happens on the right, the square root and the radical cancel out. Because the index is 2, they'll cancel, and you get x. And it actually takes care of the whole problem in one foul swoop. So then you're going to solve. I'm going to bring my variables and like terms to one side, and you're going to get 5x minus 1 equals 0. I will add 1 to both sides, so you get 5x equals 1. And then finally divide by 5, and you get 1/5. You'll go ahead, plug it back into the equation. Make sure that it checks out. And if I multiply this, I get square root of 6/5 minus 1. I'll want a common denominator, which is 5. So I'll make that 5 over 5. And I get the square root of 1/5, which is the same as the right side. So that works out for us. All right, let's take a look at number 5. You'll notice that in this one, we just have one square root. So again, we're going to make sure it's isolated, which it is. There's nothing outside of that square root on that side. So you're going to go ahead and square it. And the square root and the square are going to cancel. And you end up getting 9y squared plus 2y minus 10 equals 3y. Sorry. You don't get 3y because we're squaring it. You're going to get 9y squared. We're going to bring all our terms together. So I'm going to subtract 9y squared. That's going to cancel out. So you get 2y minus 10 equals 0. Again, we're going to solve this. So you're going to add 10 to both sides, divide by 2, and you get 5. If you plug it in, it checks out. All right, our last example for the video is number 6. And what you'll notice hopefully about number 6 is it has a different index. You'll notice hopefully that the index is 3. You're still going to approach it the same way. What we want to do is we want to isolate the radical. So what we're going to do is we're going to subtract 5, and you get the cube root of x equals -8. Now, one thing to point out, some of you might remember in the last video, when we isolate and there's a negative number, we said no solution. But this is a little different because we have an index of 3. It's an odd index. So, and if you remember in previous lessons, can you have an odd number and produce a negative? Sure. The other thing that makes this a little different and a little unique is that when we go to solve this, we're not going to square it anymore. What we're going to do is we're going to take it to the third power, because the index here and the cube here will cancel out. So I'm going to cube both sides. When we do that, the radical is going to cancel out and you're left with x. And when you cube the -8, it gives you -512. If you were to plug it back in, it checks out. And our answer is -512. That's going to be the end of the video for today. But if you go ahead and watch video number 3, it would be a good idea. It won't actually be on the quiz or your next test, but it might show up as an extra credit. It has to deal with when you see two radicals that aren't necessarily isolated.